The arched A-frame has some interesting advantages to it because it combines the wall and the roof piece all in one arch. And the way you would want to do this is to make a jig. Now typically for an arched A-frame house, let's say the building is 16 feet wide, then that would be your radius for the arch, so they would meet in the middle. The only drawback to the arch is that your walls are curved and it's difficult for furniture on the edges or cabinetry. Now, one way to fix this is to go straight up for about 4 or 5 feet and then arch in quickly to the top. That gives you the benefit of having some flat walls at the bottom for your fixtures and furniture, cabinets. Arch roof is a really strong roof because it's in compression mode. Whenever you have an arc and you push down, it's in compression, where if it's flat, now you're in tension and it can give and break on the inside. Now, the thicker the walls, the stronger it's going to be, or the stronger the roof panel. That's one reason I went with a 7.5 inch on the pool house, and that should be plenty strong. When you add the fiber mesh on both sides and the stucco buildup, that is where you get tremendous strength. The truss system, if you are going to do it with molds, you would want to put these on 24-inch centers, and this is how I did the garden shed. And then I used hardboard that you can get from Home Depot, about 16 bucks. And you would screw that to the sides on the inside and outside, and that makes your mold. For the garden shed, I did a 3.5 inch wall because I didn't need a lot of insulation, and it's super strong. Even just with 3.5 inches for this whole building, you can crawl all over the thing. It's not going anywhere. I did 4 feet at a time, so I'd run the 4-foot panels here, fill them all full of the Aircrete. Now, if you go 2 stories, we need to brace, have extra strength in the walls to support that second story. And you can either do concrete columns with rebar about every 6 feet in the wall for support, or you can add 2x4s or 2x6s framed into the wall itself. And that will give you the strength that you need to support the second floor. Real easy to build. Your trusses are essentially ripped 2x boards that you rip down to a 1 inch, and you have a 1 inch strip on one side. You have spacer blocks that are 6 inches long, and you put them every 24 inches, and then you have another strip on the other side, 1 inch. So let's say you wanted a 5.5 inch wall. You got 1 inch, 1 inch, and you would do a 3.5 inch block in the middle, which is a 2x4, and that works perfect to give you a 5.5 inch wall. If you want to do a 7.5 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and then a 5.5 inch, which is your 2x6. So that is working great to make your blocks out of 2x material. Now, for the strips, the white wood is better versus yellow pine. It's a softer wood, it's more forgiving, doesn't have as many knots in it, and I like to use 2x6s. You can buy them in 8, 10, 12, 16 foot lengths, run them through your table saw, 1 inch thickness, and out of a 2x6, 5.5 inches, you can get your 5 pieces, as long as you're using a thin blade on your saw. Now, if you do the arches with a jig, that jig, you've got to draw your arc, and so I used 4x8 panels with OSB on the top and put several of them together to make a table large enough for your arch, and then drew my lines inside and outside. And you need to have a long radius, if it's 16-foot radius, to have your point, and then with a pencil draw it all the way around to get your arch. Go out another 3.5 inches or 5.5, whatever you want the thickness of your walls, and draw the second one. Now you have your guides of where the jig needs to be, and you want to use short 2x4 blocks. Even shorter than this is good. and every 24 inches screw that down on your panel on both sides. Now you want to have them spaced so that your blocks that you're going to be putting into the truss is between those blocks. So right at your very first corner or at the ground level, you want to have a block. Then 12 inches in, you'd have your first jig blocks here, and then you'd put your next spacer at 24 inches away, which is falling between your jig blocks so that you can nail to the sides. Because you're having to bend the wood, you need to rip it down to 1/2 inch thicknesses, and that is thin enough to be able to bend it around the jig. You're going to need to use clamps to clamp it in place, and then you're going to need a second layer. Go ahead and smear glue on that and lay it down with it, and use your clamps to pull it tight up right with the blocks all the way around on the jig, and then use a finishing nailer to nail all of the 1/2 inch boards with 1 inch nails, and then use a longer 2 inch nail or 2.5 inch nail to nail into the blocks in the middle. And then you're ready to go. Now, sometimes when they dry, they won't be perfectly the same arch. If you want to, you can use thin strips of wood and have a straight piece that is tacked to the bottom and the top to pull it in at exactly the right radius before you take it out of the jig, so it will hold that shape until the glue dries. But if you're making one after another, you're not giving time for the glue to dry. So that is how you would make your trusses. Now, if you use the hardboard, you're going to have to run some horizontal braces with 2x4s, also screwed right into these trusses to give it extra support every 24 inches. So on the 4x8 sheet, one here, and one at the top to help brace that hardboard because it's not super strong. In fact, after about 5 pours, I started to get some bulging going on the hardboard, but when you stucco it, no big deal. You can still get it nice and smooth.